Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, feeling well, having a great start to your Sunday and a great weekend out there so far. The high levels of activity in regards to severe weather continues, and today is no different than any other day that we've seen over the last week or two, really. It's been very active this June. I was kind of thinking about this morning. It's just wild. June has been incredibly active in regards to just weather in general. So continues to be the case today. We have a huge enhanced risk, which includes millions of people across the Ohio Valley down to the deep south. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about that in great detail. A large portion of this video this morning will go into covering that. Of course, we're going to mix in our usual daily forecast and cover all regions of the country in here, but I can tell you the majority of this is going to be trying to figure out what's going to happen for today for all these areas. We'll give you a briefing on what could happen tomorrow. Also, I had a lot of questions and I was kind of just breezing through my comments this morning. I have not got a chance to acknowledge any of them. I promise you I'll try to squeeze that in. Sunday morning is extremely busy for me and my family as we prepare for church and things like that. And I'm kind of kicking myself. I'm not waking up a little bit earlier and preparing for this, but it was kind of my sleep-in day. But regardless, we're going to get you guys some good information here, keep you guys aware. Everything has increased. The chances for all risk have increased. But the tornado threat is what I'm concerned about, as that has increased to a 10% hatched risk, which we'll talk about what that means here in this video. If you folks have not subscribed, welcome, and definitely consider subscribing if you're a new viewer. I appreciate all the support. The video last night hit over 10K views. You don't see that much in the summer on my channel, so thank y'all for the amazing support, for supporting what I do. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. Let's get rolling. Pretty long video. Got a lot to talk about. Water vapor loop. We always break this down first. Hopefully my clicker will work, and she is. So this is the low right here. As you can tell, there's a little bit of a spin. You can see it actually pretty well on here, honestly. And it's spinning around, and typically when you have this look, and remember, there's ridging going on right here in general. Of course, the actual gradient of the ridge is probably much different than that, but this is where the flow is going. So, you know, this low pressure started off over here and what gave us all those tornadoes in Wyoming a couple days ago. So this is pretty much flown like this on the upper portion of this ridge, and will continue to gradually dig south, or maybe more so this way throughout the next 24 to 48 hours. This will eventually bring bad weather also Monday to areas of the mid-Atlantic and southeast. But let's talk about today first. So as this continues to roll, you got tons of ingredients that builds into this region. It's already there across these portions of the south this morning, but you're going to have a bad overlapping. I say bad because it's not good news, of kinematics and thermodynamics, which come together to make the dynamics needed for a significant severe weather event. And that is likely what is going to happen today, especially somewhere here in Ohio, Indiana, into Kentucky, which will be the area that will see the highest risk for a tornado, which typically you always need the best of both dynamics, kinematic-wise and thermodynamic-wise, to come together for that tornado threat. We'll talk more in detail on that here in a second, but this is what's going on. Active weather, very, very active weather expected today. So let's get off this. Let's take a look at what's actually falling at the surface. And we already got bad weather going on. I wouldn't say it's bad weather, but we already have a lot of shower and storm activity ongoing through Indiana. This is good news because you guys need the rain in Illinois, Indiana, areas of Kentucky, and Ohio. You're getting it this morning, and it's not really in the form of severe weather right now. But there is some storm action ongoing as of now. No severe warned storms ongoing out there. These extend pretty much all the way from southern Michigan all the way down into western and central areas of Kentucky. By the time this video drops, this will obviously start to ooze into western sections of Ohio. But this is what's going on, honestly, between the entire country. And we'll zoom out here. This is pretty much really the storyline right now. There is some showers in eastern areas of Oregon, and the actual upper level spin up here is creating some shower activity, even a little bit of a flooding up here in northeast North Dakota. And we definitely have some shower activity up here. Much needed rain falling from my folks up here in the UP and Michigan. This is good news. and it's not in the form of, any kind of severe weather or anything like that. The Storm Prediction Center, and I want to let you know, we're going to get more detailed on this at a later frame as we zoom into these severe weather threat areas. But a more broad look at what's going on here. You got these two areas to watch for a little bit of severe weather today out west in Montana, Idaho, and areas of Wyoming. But this is the big storyline today. Massive enhanced risk. This continues to be unusual, even in the Ohio Valley, up into here. And some folks consider this the Midwest. It's very hard for me to consider Ohio the Midwest, but I know you folks in Ohio are telling me loudly that no, we are the Midwest, especially in Indiana. But Midwest, Ohio Valley, whatever it may be, you guys in this area are going to experience some bad weather today. And, the enhanced risk is from all the way. And remember, I told you last night, not to blow smoke up my rear end or anything like that, but I told you last night I thought the enhanced risk would get extended into Arkansas. And sure enough, it has. In fact, the slight risk has been extended all the way into Oklahoma. But large area is going to see some pretty bad weather today. So we'll talk in detail as far as the tornado, wind, and hail threat here in a second. So stick with me. But highly populated areas affected by this today. Advisories, watches, warnings, things like that. Heat advisories. It's going to be incredibly hot in areas like Arkansas today before the storms fire up. And really that's the telltale sign that you're going to have some explosive heat that leads to some explosive thunderstorms later this afternoon and evening in Arkansas, western Tennessee. It's going to rapidly warm all the way up into maybe the low 100s in some areas before storms really fire up and cool you guys down. But of course, the transition and the deal is you're going to have to deal with the nasty weather to cool you down. Excessive heat warnings are back for these areas that were without power like last week. Things like that. Excessive heat warnings. The heat is building into this region as basically this ridging shifts a little bit further east. So very hot across all these counties you see in the orange and the purple on your screen. Hundreds heat index well over 105, 110 degrees in these regions. So let's zoom into the severe weather risk. We go over all this for any new viewers or anybody who watches a lot that don't understand. I try to explain this the best way I can. This is the Storm Prediction Center outlook from Pivotal Weather. We're zoomed into the region that's going to be impacted the most. So highly populated areas, okay? Indianapolis, all right? Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, Louisville, Lexington, Kentucky, down to Nashville, Tennessee, Bowling Green, Kentucky, down to Memphis, the northern half of Mississippi, northwest areas of Alabama like Florence, Alabama, down here to central Mississippi, all the way to Little Rock, pretty much, you might as well say Jonesboro, Arkansas. All you have a level 3 out of 5. I want to let you guys know. Then in the next update here in about an hour, hour and a half, someone could upgrade to a moderate risk. If it does, I would say it'll be up here. So it's not that I'm deliberately giving you guys old information. That's not what I'm doing. It's just the fact that I'm making this video around 7:15 a.m. Eastern time. They normally do another update at around 8:30 to 9 o'clock. Sometimes a little earlier on big time severe weather days like this. But enhanced risk for these areas. So the theory is that everybody in the orange is going to see the worst weather. But the yellow, that's a level 2 out of 5, which extends all the way up to Toledo, Cleveland, almost all the way up to Detroit. You got almost all the way down to Knoxville, the eastern hills of Kentucky, western sections of West Virginia, includes Paducah, Kentucky, all the way down to Birmingham, Huntsville, Alabama, even into the northwest corner of Georgia. So, I mean, this extends all the way into sections of far northeast Texas, all the way down to Louisiana. So, we'll talk about all these regions. This is what's concerning. We've increased our tornado threat from last night's video. We now have in the yellow, and if you're wondering what the key is, it's down here. It's probably kind of hard to see on the screen. It's very tiny. The yellow is a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. So to me, it looks like basically, geographically speaking, if you're between Indianapolis and Dayton, Ohio, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Dayton, Ohio, probably all the way down into Louisville, all the way up until probably about Fort Wayne. Anybody in between all those regions I just mentioned stand the best chance to see a tornado. There's a 10% risk in the yellow area of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. But basically, even though it doesn't look like the black outline extends all the way out to the yellow outlined area, pretty much in this entire yellow area. You also have a hatch risk, which is the black outline region with the checkered marks going through it. That means you have also a 10% risk of a significant tornado, which the Storm Prediction Center considers an EF2 or higher, and that's when you start to get catastrophic damage with these tornadoes. But you can't ignore the brown risk area either. That is a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles of any given location, which does include Indianapolis, almost all the way to Columbus. Does include Dayton. It does include Cincinnati. Cincinnati's kind of right on the fringe of the 10 and 5% risk. You also got a tornado risk down into areas of Nashville. But if you notice, the enhanced risk extends all the way down to Little Rock. You're thinking, what about the tornado risk down here? You're lacking kinematics. Remember that low pressure is way up here to the north, all the way in Wisconsin. The closer you get to that low pressure, the better the kinematics are. Kinematics is the wind aloft, basically, that supports a spin to the atmosphere that creates a higher tornado threat. The hail threat today, in the red areas, you have a 30% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger in these regions. Okay, that's the red. The yellow is a 15% risk of the same criteria. But if you look, you have a hatched risk, which is the lines going through these regions, the black outline area. And this one's a little bit more odd. It kind of goes through half this red area and then extends back into southeast Oklahoma. That means there is a 10% risk of significant hail, which is hail that exceeds 2 inch in diameter or larger within 25 miles in any given location. So western Ohio, excuse me, eastern half of Indiana, northern sections, which include some higher populated areas like Louisville, Cincinnati, etc. There is a significant chance of hail. So please be aware. I'm going to say that probably about 20 more times in this video. The wind threat today. As of now, no hatched risk of wind, but I can tell you that could change in the next update. Won't be surprised one bit. A huge area, which includes the entire enhanced risk area, of a 30% risk in the red area, the keys down here, 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in any given location. You can get some water there because it's going to be a long video, guys, so I do apologize for stopping. The HRRR model. That's what we're going to focus in on this video. And what we have here is we have the morning convection. We already talked about that a couple panels ago. We have morning showers and storms ongoing. So the HRRR model is doing a pretty decent job on picking up on this. So we're going to try to cover everything here. We're going to talk about what the HRRR model is showing storm-wise on what could happen. And then we'll talk about the potential impacts, the updraft helicity swath, and then we'll talk about the ingredients driving everything. We're going to cover all the states in this. So if you're saying, Mitch, you missed my state, it's not deliberate. I got a ton of information flooding to my head at one time when I make these videos. I don't do any edits. I don't do anything like that. I jump on here and I wing it all. But that's how we do here. But let's get going here. These storms will trail off and kind of round the ridge and then continue to flood into Kentucky, into Tennessee. Now this could bring, and we're going to talk about Tennessee in the next frame. So, this is for Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Southern Michigan. We'll talk about Tennessee in the Deep South frame. I'll have tabs pulled up for all this. But as we're getting into the late morning hours, at this point, if you're wondering what time frame we're at, and I forget to mention it, this is in Eastern time. This time right here that says 2 p.m., that is this is in Central time. This shows in Eastern time. So back this up 1 hour. So what you're seeing here, this is around 1 p.m. All right, so you get to 2 p.m., 3 p.m., bang, some storms get going right here in southwest Michigan. You got a pretty intense storm showing up in and around just south of South Bend, in and around the Fort Wayne area. As early as 3 p.m., you could immediately have some destructive storms that really explode here. Okay, bang. This is around 4 p.m. I'll stop it right here. Powerful storm showing up basically from around the Kalamazoo, just south of Lansing area. Not quite to Ann Arbor, which is more so over here, but Fort Wayne, big storms, all the way down to Indianapolis. It's possible some big storms could be going on. And these storms initially, and maybe for a few hour period, and I think this is why the tornado threat has increased, take on that discrete look. The more discrete they are, meaning kind of the more they are on their own, the higher chance of tornado threat's going to be. If they quickly go to a linear mode, which means more of a line of draped out storms, damaging wind threat, large hail, and a tornado threat still is there, but the tornado threat, I think, drops. But you stop it here. This is around 4 p.m. And this is when the tornado threat begins to arrive and increase for a few hour period. And you keep this going here, tornado threat will persist in this entire region. This is beginning to enter areas of Ohio. And I know you don't really see much storm action down here into, I would say, you know, Louisville, Cincinnati yet. But the HRRR model, no model is exact science. It's just trying to figure out, it's giving us our best guess, guys. But Fort Wayne, this is beginning to knock on the door of Toledo around 6, 7 p.m. Bad storms, even possible all the way up to Detroit, even though the category risk isn't very high up here. But like I said, it starts off probably early to mid-afternoon. Semi-supercells are possible in this region. This quickly gets kind of turns into more of a line of storms. But look at these storms down here. I would be aware of this down here to Louisville, Elizabethtown, even back into Evansville, a point south and southeast, Owensboro. All these communities right here in western Kentucky. Please be aware because these could produce tornadoes too down here. But this line of storms continues. I know you see this weird gap here because this area could just as well have some nasty storms. But these continue to sweep across Detroit, Cleveland. I would say this weather gets pretty bad around late afternoon, more so early evening, 6, 7, 8 p.m. These sweep across the region. Weather could get quite intense, I would say, in the Cincinnati region, early evening time frame. And this continues. And, you know, this is around 9 p.m. And this is a concerning looking storm. I would say it takes to about early to late evening, the entire evening time frame before the low-level jet really gets ramped up here. The mid-level jet is already streaking in here. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Those are the kinematics needed for a really big-time damaging wind threat and also that tornado threat, really. But really watch out for these cells right here where Indiana, Northern Kentucky, and Ohio meet right into here. And this is right where Cincinnati is. Please be careful. And this is when the sun is already setting. It's around 9 p.m. This is when the kinematics are beginning to max out late afternoon into the evening hours. Please be careful with these storms right into here. Okay? Tornado threat will be pretty high. And that's why if you go back and look at this, into this region, the highest tornado threat's right into here. Okay? So these continue to trail off. West Virginia, I think the weather gets bad for you folks around 11 p.m. I would say 11 p.m. midnight onward. And it just depends on how much these storms really hold together. But if you're in West Virginia, you know, Huntington, Charleston, West Virginia, all the way up to Wheeling, some bad storms can move through, I would say, around the midnight time frame onward. But I think these begin to lose some steam. But really, what's going to happen in eastern Kentucky? I think the storms get bad well after midnight. But I think large hail, damaging winds will be the biggest threat. But I think the threat overall really drops off pretty quick the further southeast you work, and then you get into tomorrow's threat. But I hope I covered everybody here in this frame. You know, I haven't gotten to Arkansas, Tennessee, points south. But just know, in general, some big-time supercells are going to get going. And even though you don't see anything into this region down into here, okay, these storms could just as well be down in here, okay? I know you don't see anything, and you're thinking, well, there's not going to be any storms. Why are we freaking out down here like near Evansville, point south? But I'm telling you, these could pop off quick. And in fact, you look at this cell right into here. This is around 7 p.m. before the sun goes down. And, you know, I hate speaking on this as if exactly what's going to happen, but the cell between Owensboro, Bowling Green, Elizabethtown, you know, this is kind of got that hook to it, right? These are the ones you worry about. So the updraft Felicity swath with this. This tells us where these storms are really rotating. It kind of gives us an idea at what area of storms could be spinning the most. And like I said, man, it really likes this area right here where Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky meet. And this is right on top of Cincinnati. These storms could really be spinning in this region. And it makes sense because in this region is where the highest tornado threat is per the Storm Prediction Center. But, you know, just east of Indianapolis, you know, Richmond. You know, if you're always wondering why I'm looking down, I'm looking at my Google Maps on my phone trying to spit out some names for you folks in some smaller towns. Dayton, Cincinnati, Middleton between Dayton and Cincinnati. Columbus, you know, once you get to a Columbus points east and southeast, you know, up here to northeast Ohio, I think the tornado threat kind of begins to drop off. You could really lose the geographical location between the low pressure in this area. But also a highlighted area I would watch for is down here in western Kentucky, Elizabethtown, Louisville, Frankfort, Kentucky, Bowling Green. Please be careful with any kind of cells that get going down here. But the damaging wind threat, you know, we'll start off around midday today. You already got gusty winds in Illinois. These are non-thunderstorm winds. The mid-level jet begins to ramp up. And so these, when I say mid-level jet, I mean these are winds like several thousand feet up in the air. It begins to ramp up. And some of these winds mix to the surface. But you keep going here. This is when the storms really get going. Look at this cell that really gets popped off here in northern Indiana. This is around the Fort Wayne area. If you're wondering how strong those winds are, I mean, that's, you know, 60, 70 mile per hour winds. And listen, the ARRL models typically overdo it when it comes to winds, but in general, you know, if you're in southern Michigan all the way down to western Kentucky, look at these lines of storms, especially up here, sweeping through. I think the damaging wind threat could be pretty bad in southern Michigan, western Ohio, eastern Indiana later today with these lines of storms that get going kind of mid to late afternoon. And if you live anywhere in southern Michigan, and those other regions I just mentioned of Indiana and Ohio, you could get some storms that moves through in some of these areas. And these little highlighted colors right here, you know, 40 to potentially 70, 75 mile per hour wind gusts are possible in these regions with these storms. And you see these storms really pop up down here too. And down here in Kentucky and the Indiana area, Evansville, you're going to be, for example, Evansville is going to be a weird location where I think the storms will really explode either right on you or just east and southeast of you. But please be aware regardless. But some very strong winds with these storms, and these continue to make their way through eastern Ohio. Some gusty winds are possible, 30 to as much as 50 mile per hour wind gusts. You know, West Virginia, you could get a line of some gusty winds late evening into the overnight hours. So hope I covered your area well. I try to answer any comments I can or later on. It's very difficult. Like I said, Sunday mornings are busy. Let's talk about the Deep South. We'll start off this morning, and I want to let you guys know, I think I had a question. I kind of briefly looked at it, wondering about Nashville. Maybe there's a NASCAR race in Nashville later today. I think that's what I read. If I'm reading that incorrectly, I do apologize. But, you know, we make our way down into the Deep South, the Mid-South areas, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, even Georgia. I'm watching for what's going on right now to eventually kind of re-energize. You get into about the late morning, midday time frame, these storms begin to make their way into northern Mississippi, right into here. So I think Nashville could get some showers and storms as early as late morning, early afternoon. Please do not think that this is the big weather event with this, because you're going to get another round later this evening. But we'll watch to see what these do. These move in from the northwest and begin to drop southeast, but then more so just south. And, you know, we get into early afternoon, these storms will begin to enter potentially eastern Tennessee. You know, Chattanooga could get some storms around early to mid-afternoon. Huntsville, Alabama, same way, northern areas of Georgia. But really, this isn't their main energy. But, I mean, sure enough, we're getting into afternoon hours. At the same time, you're about to see an explosion of storms in northern Arkansas. So we're going to finish talking about this, but just know that some storms are possible early afternoon, you know, to about late afternoon, early evening into northern sections of Alabama. And these same storms will continue to make their way through Alabama, Birmingham, Huntsville, all the way down to Montgomery, and eventually this line of storms will catch up with it. But so I just want to let you guys know with that. Now, the storms that come in behind this, if you're wondering, Nashville, and I'm going to talk about you folks in Arkansas here in a second, because you guys warrant your own attention, because these storms in Arkansas could produce some very large hail today and damaging winds. I think that is a serious threat in Arkansas today. I'm going to talk about you, so bear with me. I'm kind of covered Tennessee. Don't want to jip Tennessee here. But Tennessee, you know, you get your morning showers and storms and afternoon, late afternoon, and then another round comes in. Notice we're on O2Z Monday. So this is around 9-10 p.m. Some big-time cells, some at which could produce some tornadoes, begin to make their way out of Kentucky into Tennessee, Clarksville, Down to Nashville, some big storms are possible after the sun goes down later tonight. So don't think what happens later this morning, early this afternoon is going to be it in Nashville. More powerful storms move through this evening, and these can produce all hazards: hail, large hail, damaging winds, and a tornado threat. So if you got any outdoor activities this evening, please be aware. But I think, honestly, you're going to have a window in Tennessee this afternoon, this evening, where it's all clear. And hopefully that doesn't deceive people or anything like that. But just know that there's more nasty weather coming in later tonight, especially for central areas of Tennessee. But let's back this up. Let's talk about Arkansas. This is around 2 p.m. Remember, I know it says 3 p.m., but this is around 2 p.m. Central Time. This is an Eastern Time. Virtually nothing going on, right? So, it's very hot at this point. You're probably getting into the upper 90s, even low 100s, and even in the early afternoon in Arkansas. Then bang, storms explode right here in Arkansas very quickly. It's just like they just pop up out of nowhere here in the Ozarks and the northern sections of Arkansas, or some mountainous regions. And then they continue to grow upscale. At this point, these are in some more, I would say, rural areas. You got some small towns here in northern areas of Arkansas, and then bang, these really become widespread in all of northern Arkansas. Jonesboro, even over the Fayetteville, could get some nasty weather. Everybody in between in this region. And these begin to move from northwest to southeast. So, they begin to affect areas. And we cannot rule out any storms in the Boot Hill, Missouri, too. If you live in the Boot Hill, Missouri, extreme areas in this boot right here, you could get some very powerful storms, I would say, later this afternoon, early this evening. But here they go. They're making their way into western sections of Tennessee. I would say western Tennessee, you get some bad storms around 6, 7, 8 p.m. Dyersburg. Memphis, Tennessee, I would cancel any kind of evening activities, especially if it has anything with doing with walking the town or anything like that. I'm telling you, some bad storms are probably, say there's a good 80 to 90% chance some bad storms will roll through your area later tonight. Damaging winds, large, all threats. I would say the tornado threat will probably be pretty low in this entire area. But, check out Little Rock. Bad storms could roll through your area right as the sun's setting this evening. Damaging winds, a large hail. The biggest threat with this, the storm motion is a lot slower in this region, though. Okay? But you keep this going here. You're getting into Mississippi. A line of storms will sweep in from north to south, and it'll take, before they get to like Jackson, Mississippi, all the way to probably about midnight to make it. But if I had somebody ask me about northern Louisiana, I say these storms don't reach your area until probably after midnight tonight, and they could still be quite intense. But I don't think that you guys are going to see the biggest punch of storms. But these storms could just as well be very, very strong, even getting into this region later today, really later tonight. So I do want to include areas of Oklahoma and Northeast, my folks in Oklahoma and Northeast Tennessee. Don't want to just completely leave you guys hanging, but if you're in eastern Oklahoma, these storms could trail off into your region too. So if you're in southeast sections of Oklahoma, northeast Texas, extreme regions of these areas, I say some storms in southeast Oklahoma could get going. It's probably going to be all the way until about late evening, 8, 9 p.m. They could sweep through extreme northeast areas of Texas, could see some bad storms later tonight, well after the sun goes down, maybe after you're already asleep, but not very widespread out in this region. But you talk about the updraft Felicity swath. Yes, it is very highly highlighted here in Arkansas. And I do think some of these storms will be spinning, even though there's a below 2% risk of a tornado in this area. And we can't totally discount the tornado threat in this region, but I don't think really anything's going to latch down here. But I would not be surprised we get a tornado warning or two in Arkansas later today. These storms will be rotating. I just don't think they're going to really, it's going to be some really broad rotation. The updraft Felicity swath picks up on broad rotation and tight rotation. Remember, you need that tight rotation on radar to really symbolize and verify a tornado that's on the ground. But I would watch out more so around Nashville, points north into southern areas of Kentucky. These areas, I think, have a more legitimate chance of a tornado later this evening into kind of the early overnight period. And, you could get something in Alabama too, but I would say the chances are lower. But the damaging wind threat is real today. We make our way into the afternoon period. This is from the storms moving through late morning, early afternoon. these could produce some, 20, 30, 40 mile per hour wind gusts. But look at these storms that explode in northern Arkansas. They could be explosive, could get going quickly, produce 70, 80 mile per hour wind gusts in northern Arkansas. Now, like I said, the HRRR model is going to overdo this, but we get into this evening, 6, 7 p.m., these storms are producing some very strong winds. In fact, the HRRR model wants to say 80 to 90 mile per hour winds. It did show this. I would really watch out. Jonesboro points northeast into the Boot Hill, Missouri. Some models have really been adamant about some nasty storms really being in this region that are going to produce some big time winds. So please be aware in this region, the 5 to 6, 7 p.m. time frame. But I mean, look at Memphis. Is around 7, 8 p.m. Winds moving in these areas with the associated storms producing potential for 40 to 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts. And then these blast through northern Mississippi. And, Little Rock, bad storms, damaging winds are possible. And these sweep through northern Mississippi after the sun is beginning to set. So please take this serious. Just because the sun sets in these regions does not mean that the severe weather risk is completely over. Yes, these storms begin to lose some punch, but some significant winds could sweep through this entire region throughout the afternoon, evening, and overnight periods tonight. We talk about the ingredients here, and we'll start this around midday. And you're thinking, well, what is this pink or this purple area right here? These are kinematics. This is what we call our mid-level jet, winds several thousand feet up in the air, several thousand, tens of 20,000 feet up in the air. And basically, this moves in. It's basically this jet streak is what we call it. This is basically where the jet is. This moves in, and you basically replace a very weak mid-level jet with a very strong. For example, this morning, you got a 60 to 70, 80 knot mid-level jet sweeping through this region. And this completely takes over the entire Mississippi Valley and the Ohio Valley into this region as we get into late this afternoon, this evening. So basically what I'm trying to say here is you got a massive kinematic field that supports damaging winds and a tornado threat. And basically right into here where your best cape builds, your cape is that energy in the atmosphere here. The fuel in the atmosphere here that really builds into these storms. Basically where the best overlapping of this is your kinematics and your thermodynamics, which will come together to make a dynamic that supports severe weather, which will happen right into here. That's where your highest all hazards threat is going to be, where your higher tornado threat and your damaging wind threat is going to be in this region. Mid-level jets screeching through here, high kinematic field. Now, there's much more stable air moving into Illinois, Missouri, right? So basically, and I'm about to show you this, basically where your dynamics are building into this region. I feel like I repeated myself 100 times in that. It's probably because I'm getting distracted by my girls in the background screaming. So you keep going here, and you look at the CAPE values that are building into this region. I mean, this morning, you already got CAPE values over 2,000 joules per kilogram, building into southern Missouri, Arkansas, already high levels of moisture in this region. Now look, you look in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, there's not much CAPE in this region, but watch how it's replaced with zero CAPE to CAPE, in Indiana, well over 2,000, 2,500 joules per kilogram. And look at this energy building into western Tennessee, Arkansas, the Boot Hill, Missouri, western Tennessee, western Kentucky. But look, you're thinking, well, it's not that bad early in the afternoon in this area that has a tornado threat, but it doesn't have to be that high when you have a pretty stout kinematic wind field overhead. So you mix 1,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE with, a pretty stout 30 to 40 knot low-level jet and a mid-level jet, that's screeching at about 40, 50, 60 knots and the upper levels in the atmosphere here, you're going to have the dynamics to support a tornado threat. And look at this CAPE building. I would argue it's going to be higher. A lot of times it's verifies higher, but you got CAPE levels that are pushing 4,000 joules per kilogram into this region. So what I'm trying to say here is all these areas right in here, you got rocket fuel to the atmosphere here for explosive thunderstorms building into this region. And that's what's going to be the case. It's the best overlapping up here between CAPE levels and the kinematics that is going to spell trouble. And if you look at the low-level jet into this region that really sweeps through here, and we'll have to kind of get this back in time here, and we get this going. And this is the low-level jet. This is really what we look for that tornado threat. Look how it builds into this region right around late afternoon, the evening time frame into this region. You got a low-level jet that's pushing, in some areas, 40 to 50 knots. You mix that with already the screeching 50 to 60, 70 knot mid-level jet. Cape levels building well above 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram in this region. This is that nose you watch for right in here for that highest tornado threat. So please, please take this serious today. I know that's a mouthful, guys, but moving forward here, we'll talk about the rest of the Southeast, and I'll be honest, we're going to breeze through this pretty quickly. The rest of the Southeast today, we're not going to speak on this because we just did these storms, but the rest of the Southeast today, I could see the tail end of this morning convection reaching all the way into the western sections of South Carolina. You could have some showers and storms possible in the Greenville-Spartanburg area. It is possible in eastern North Carolina. Some storms could be ongoing around the Norfolk area, northeast North Carolina region, southeast Virginia. You could get some isolated downpours really anywhere in South Carolina, North Carolina. I could see some storms being ongoing here in the southern half of Florida, kind of like what happened yesterday in the southern half of Florida. You could get some isolated downpours, showers, and storms. Not expecting much in the way of severe weather down here. But of course, just like any day in the summer in Florida, some of these storms could produce frequent lightning, heavy rain, maybe some small hail, and definitely some gusty winds with some microbursts. So, if you're anywhere from, Orlando points south, everybody stands a pretty solid chance to see some showers and storms. We make our way into the morning hours. The leftover energy from everything that happens later today will dissipate, and then we begin a period tomorrow that is going to introduce a pretty significant severe weather threat across the mid-Atlantic and the Southeast. The Northeast today, I think we're going to have a pretty stormy day in the Northeast. We get into, as early as 2, 3 p.m. I would say anybody in New Jersey, New York State, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Maine, pretty much everybody stands about the same percentage chance to see some showers and storms. They're very pop-up in nature. They kind of move generally slow. They could dump a good bit of rain. So basically every state that I just spitted out there stands a pretty solid chance for some pop-up downpours. Some of these could produce some small hail. It's certainly possible. Some gusty winds. But really, these will just dump a downpour or two in these regions. But there will be numerous in nature. A lot could pop up. And then as we get into the middle of the night, West Virginia, we kind of mentioned you folks. This broken line of storms will enter. They also enter western PA. You guys could see some gusty winds overnight from some storms, and then we're waking up tomorrow morning to potentially some rain in and around the New York City area. And we will see what happens for the Northeast with this low pressure. I could see a severe weather threat extending a little bit further north. South Central U.S., we already talked about the severe weather in this region. And honestly, that's all that there is to talk about. You could have some storms, some showers, downpours that pop up here in southwest areas of Texas. It's quite possible you could have that. But really the big storyline is if you move into Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, and we've already went over that. But this continuing, we can wake up tomorrow morning to maybe some lingering showers and storms in southern Arkansas and northern Louisiana. We'll make our way into the north central U.S. This upper level low is spinning away very slowly. So you're already dealing with some showers and downpours, and you will continue to deal with it. In fact, they will become more robust today. So if you're in the extreme eastern areas of South Dakota, all throughout Minnesota, northern Iowa, a lot of Wisconsin, the northern half of Wisconsin, and even the UP of Michigan, showers, some storm activity. Some of these will produce some very small hail, which are in and around and just north of the low pressure, a little bit of cold air aloft. But please be careful. Even in the central and northern areas of Michigan later today, you're going to probably get some intense storms in this region too. So I know I didn't mention you guys much, but in the northern half of Michigan, Grand Rapids, Flint, Midland, even Traverse City, Cadillac, sorry, you guys correct me if I pronounced it wrong. You guys could get some gusty showers and storms are possible in this region. So anybody in this entire region over the next 24 hours will just you'll just have a spin that moves over Lake Michigan later this evening, and you'll just have rounds of showers and storms in this basically in the entire Great Lakes region for today. Out west, a severe weather risk storm, a severe storm or two is possible in southeast Wyoming, this area right here, but it'll be very conditional. We'll see if it actually happens, but some severe storms are possible in Idaho, maybe Oregon. but more so, these will just be some scattered downpours, showers, storm activity, I would say, in western Montana, Idaho, eastern Oregon, even in northern Nevada. These will sweep through the region and then to diminish overnight. Some of these could produce some heavy rain, some hail, some gusty winds are possible. Temperatures today, very summer-like day for a lot of folks. 70s and 80s in the northeast. It's warming up nicely. 80s and 90s for the southeast. Very hot. I mean, it could get all the way into the upper 90s in western Kentucky before these storms move in. Same thing with western Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas will be very, very hot today before these storms fire up. You can tell this is a high-end thermodynamic environment with these temperatures that are rising so high in these regions. But 80s, even some low 90s are possible ahead of the severe weather outbreak expected in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. But widespread 100s in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, areas of Oklahoma. Temperatures getting well into the 100s. Much cooler behind this trailing cold front. Just 70s, in the upper Midwest. And just cool kind of showers and storms in the 60s and 70s. That's why you're lacking a severe weather threat with this associated low. Temperatures up here out west, you're warming up. The desert's finally getting to the desert-like temperatures, well into the 100s. Somebody's going to hit 90 degrees, kind of in the more valley regions of Washington State. And it's just in these little valleys. You're warming up well into the 80s, swimming type weather. But the higher elevation, still kind of coolish, but you're certainly more so around average, even some above average anomalies into this region out west. I'll throw you guys a bone in the mid-Atlantic southeast, and I just don't have the time to get detailed. I don't even know how long this video is at this point, but I'm going to get detailed on this tonight. I promise you guys, just like I just got detailed for the folks for today. But there is an enhanced risk of severe weather. This includes Raleigh. This includes the Richmond area. This includes Greensboro, Durham. Not quite all the way down to Charlotte, but you do have a slight risk, level 2 out of 5 in Columbia. Charlotte, Wilmington, Myrtle Beach, Charleston, all the way up to the Delmarva area, all the way up to Long Island and New York City. I think some big-time storms are going to fire up along the I-95 corridor, and I think you're going to have a pretty low tornado risk, but I think you'll get a bump up to a 5% risk. But there is a 2% risk of a tornado in this region. But the hail threat with this, I think it's going to be the biggest threat. Damaging winds will be a big threat too here, but you have a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. But you also have the hatched risk, which extends all the way down to Charlotte, all the way up to Washington, D.C., and everybody in between. You have a 10% risk of significant hail, which is 2 inch in diameter or larger hail in this region. But the wind threat tomorrow in this little red area, I say little, but it includes some decently higher populated areas. That is what's driving the enhanced risk for tomorrow. You are going to get a nasty line of storms that sweep through this area. Winds have a chance to exceed 55 to 60, 70 miles per hour in this region. And you have a 30% risk of that in the red area. Okay. A really quick look at what the HRRR model is saying could possibly happen for Monday. Quickly, these storms evolve into a semi-discrete kind of storm mode. But what I want you to watch here is as they kind of grow off the mountains and foothills of Virginia, as we get into the 3, 4, 5 p.m. range, you could get some nasty storms that explode here. Watch for these in North Carolina. Just north, just east, maybe just west of Charlotte. These storms could be very large. I'm sure there'll be a lot of storm chasers out. I'm really trying to conserve it. I'm itching to just drive all the way up to Cincinnati today and chase those, but I'm trying to save my time for hurricane season and checking out the fall foliage in the mountains. I'm really just trying to conserve my time at work. Plus, Sunday is the day. Every day is the day for the Lord, but especially Sunday. I don't like chasing on Sundays. I've done it before, and I honestly felt really bad for it. And I don't plan to ever again. But unless there's something locally here in my neck of the woods, like a hurricane, of course, got to look out for your state here and keep people aware. But anyways, off that. But what I'm concerned about is the latest HRRR model is more discreet than it was last night. And, it shows like these clusters of intense storms as you get into late afternoon, evening time frame. And I'm telling you guys, these storms are going to be intense tomorrow across Virginia, North Carolina, the Delmarva region. I know you guys up here are screaming, why aren't you showing more of our region? I promise you tonight I will. I promise you I will. I'm out of breath from discussing the threat for today. And this video would go on for about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half. if I was to get detailed on both. But you're going to get some intense weather tomorrow for the mid-Atlantic and the southeast, and even some intense storms down to South Carolina that sweep through. I mean, look, this is around midnight. Pretty nasty line of storms making their way through North Carolina and South Carolina tomorrow night. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Stay safe out there. God bless all y'all. And I'll talk to you again this evening. Please stay weather aware. God bless.